Hey everybody, this is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my 100,000 gorgeous good-looking friends. The Royal Grift has finally made it to 100,000 subscribers. I would like to take a moment to say that I am grateful for this achievement and would like to share and celebrate this milestone with all of you because without you, obviously, this moment would not exist. I will be doing a separate video once I get the official notice and give everyone the proper thanks that they deserve for being on this journey with me. This is simply a preliminary note of gratitude and appreciation for all of you. All right, let's get back to business.
I am a big believer that this issue can only be solved if they agree to move to Canada. I don't think that either America or the UK should have to put up with this any longer. There's no question that their stock has degraded very quickly over time. You know, the press was very favorable to them when they first made the move. And I think that that can largely be contributed to what was going on politically at that moment. You know, it was the rise of BLM. Meghan was very happy to use that to her advantage. She sort of really for the first time in her public life was talking about how Black she was. And she used that to rather disgrace her new family and to say, well, this is why I'm moving to LA. It's not because I'm a D-list actress who's been desperate my entire life to make the A-list, but now I can blame it on racism and not on the fact that I'm a shrewd businesswoman, which is what I think she ultimately is. But there is no question that the appetite for Harry and Meghan has completely collapsed over time. I can tell that just in my show, and I can tell it just in my reaction to it. When I see a piece of news about them, I'm just not inclined to click it anymore. And so when something happens and there's a story and people say, do you want to cover it? My producer pitched it to me a couple of weeks ago. I said, fine. And the numbers were horrible. People didn't want to watch it. They felt exactly as I watched. We're just sort of tired of it. We get it. You're a victim. You're never going to stop being a victim. Woe is you. Best put in Canada, again, is my stance.
So today, I had the opportunity to meticulously read through this propaganda. It is my opinion, based off of facts that I'm going to show you, that Harry and Meghan are 100% behind this. So let's dig into this and rip this apart.
The Beast newspaper revealed that when Meghan complained, when they arrived in America from Canada in 2021, they went to stay in Tyler Perry's compound in California, LA. And she complained about the drones flying over, looking for Archie. And in the Netflix series, she says, aren't they, these people are just terrible. What the lengths they'll go to invade our privacy. Well, Tom Sykes reveals today that he was tipped off about that drone attack and that he got from the Los Angeles Police Department under FOIA a revelation that, in fact, Meghan tipped the police off, tipped the drone, the paparazzi off, where she could be found. She wanted her privacy invaded.
Such a fraud.
The Beast newspaper revealed that when Meghan complained, when they arrived in America from Canada in 2021,
kicking this story right off from the bat, Meghan and Harry are guilty of leaking stories themselves and creating these false narratives that have caused so much trouble. So in this situation and what we're seeing, realize there are instances where Meghan and Harry did this to themselves to make it look like a certain way. Let's take this chunk by chunk. The article begins, King Charles withdrew his £700,000 funding deal for son Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's transition to a life in Canada in retaliation for the naming of a top royal aide in legal papers alleging a cash for leaks arrangement with the journalist Dan Wooten, Byline Times can reveal. Okay, we're going to pause here. That £700,000 funding deal was Harry's allowance for working as a royal. So right there, they already started to manipulate the story. The thing that's so idiotic about this is how they twisted this. Like, first off, it doesn't look too good on Prince Harry that he was receiving an allowance, but he quit his job. And in any job that you quit, you don't expect to be paid afterwards. Like, this is just mental of them to continue to keep spinning this ridiculous narrative. It only makes these two look like petulant babies. And how credible is it that Byline Times can reveal, but they don't give any kind of source or any type of evidence to show that, yes, the funding was retracted because they were retaliating against Harry and Meghan? So what we're seeing here and what was done with this propaganda smear campaign is rehashing the events that Meghan and Harry were telling in the very beginning with Oprah. What seems to be happening here is the repetition of the original lies that were being told in the very beginning. And my guess is during that time, not many people knew exactly what was going on, nor were they paying attention. I can tell you this much. Meghan had such a control and lockdown on the media here in the United States that a lot of this stuff that was going on in the background, we didn't hear about. I mean, we found out a lot of this stuff through the people on social media who were talking about what Meghan had been doing, and hence the reason why we saw this campaign to shut so many people down. They were trying desperately to keep this under wraps. So what I think is happening is they're revisiting this story because so much has happened and so much deceit and manipulation by Meghan and her squad and all the people that were participating in it. Now they're taking this and retelling this story, repackaging it, giving it a new spin as if this is some bombshell news and expose that has just been revealed, which is not true. All the stuff that they have been talking about had already been in the media, and I'm going to show you some examples of that. Let's start off with Prince Harry's pocket money being cut off by Prince Charles at the time. That's a lie. The accounts for Prince Charles at the time showed that he was continuing to fund the Sussexes until the summer of 2020. He gave a substantial amount of money to support this couple for their transition, in which there are records showing that. So for them to twist this and say, oh, poor Harry was left out in the cold and his father cut him off, meanwhile walking away with $30 million from his mother, I hardly can feel sorry for this asshole. So now to take this and twist the narrative that the reason why the money was cut off was in retaliation because Harry was naming this top royal aide, Christian Jones, in this lawsuit against the Sun, I don't buy. I mean, it never was mentioned prior, especially when they were reporting this story about this lawsuit being filed. Never once did Harry mention Christian Jones' name being the reason for why he lost his funds. That was never in the cards until now, which this story already had been out in the public, but those that weren't following this would never know it. Hence, reading this now, I could see why so many people are like, oh my gosh, Charles is so petty, and gosh, they really didn't like Meghan and Harry. No, this is not how it went down. So going back to this article, as it says in the last paragraph, the matters alleged in the letter before action about him appeared to have been dropped. But the sudden defunding of the Sussexes in late June 2020 led to the collapse of the Sandringham Agreement governing a 12-month trial period as the couple sought to split their time between the UK and Canada and remove themselves from the Royal Rota, the press pool given exclusive inside access to cover the royals. It came just 3 months into the trial period and led directly to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex having to enter into private commercial arrangements in the US to pay the estimated £3 million a year cost for 24-hour security for their family. This, too, is also a lie. What are they not understanding? The Queen said no to a half-in, half-out solution, and Meghan already had her sights on LA before this 3-month period was over. Not to mention the fact that they were planning their multi-million-dollar deals while they were still working royals. There's evidence that they were speaking to Netflix and Spotify negotiating the deals. So this is all bullshit. As I pointed out to you before, the legal documents that Meghan had filed for the paparazzi catching Archie in LA were filed in March of 2020. So they lied about when they were hopping over to California to officially reside. It then continues to say, one well-placed source with knowledge of the matter told Byline Times They threatened the removal of the funding to try and protect the royal household from a potential courtroom scandal, with Jones and Wooten very publicly at the center. The actual removal of the funding weeks later was about control and designed to force Harry and Meghan to come back to senior royal family in the UK, where their security would be assured. Now, who do you think is the one that told him that? Do you think it was Harry or do you think it was Meghan? Because the only people that I recall that had been talking about how popular they were and how jealous the royal family are of Harry and Meghan are Harry and Meghan. The source added, the greater truth is that Harry and Meghan make better headlines than the King and Camilla or William and Kate. The idea of them still being in public service, but abroad and out of the control of the institution and dominating the media narrative, just couldn't happen. Now, this one makes zero sense. It says, senior members of the family wanted them back after the transition period and were ready to continue playing dirty to make this happen. They never thought the trial period would work and tried everything to make it fail, starting with the removal of security and then signing off on a 12-month assault by the UK press on Harry and Meghan and everyone in their orbit. As far as the institution of the monarchy went, the Sussexes had either to be safely in the tent in Britain or cast away and castigated as comprehensively as possible in order to reduce the threat of them eclipsing the rest of the family. It's no surprise they have endured such a degrading time from such a willing British media when the same just isn't true elsewhere in the world. So let me see if I understand this correctly. So it is the British royal family who was the one that made Meghan appear as if she was this narcissistic sociopath and bully, all because they felt threatened and jealous of being eclipsed by her so-called greatness? Did the British royal family tell her to ignore her father and instead go take a photo shoot at Uvalde with dead children? Did they force her to go on Oprah while Prince Philip was dying in hospital to trigger off a race war and incite hatred on this family just to make his last couple days on this earth miserable? No, she did that all herself. As if the British royal family wants these two vipers back into the fold. As part of a 3-year special investigation into the professional and personal conduct of Dan Wooten, Byline Times has spoken to several sources with connections to the royal households about how the partner of Christian Jones, a publicist, came to be paid £4,000 by Rupert Murdoch's The Sun in August 2019, allegedly for articles relating to the Sussexes. It is understood that the professional publicist admits to receiving the payments, but has claimed they were for other stories about a reality television star with a similar name to the Duchess of Sussex. Okay, where is this information coming from? Jones has always denied being the source of any unauthorized information about the Sussexes getting into the press, including details of a handwritten summary that Prince Harry had given Prince Charles in December 2019 of plans to move his family to North America, which Wooten reported initially on the front page of The Sun on January 7, 2020, before running day after day of negative coverage. In his best-selling book Spare, the Duke of Sussex said Wooten's information included a telling detail about an offer to relinquish their titles. There was only one document on earth in which that detail was mentioned, my private and confidential letter to my father, he writes, to which a shockingly, damningly small number of people had access. We hadn't mentioned it to even our closest friends. Byline Times can reveal how the story so-called Megxit was published on the same day the Sussexes were planning their own announcement. It prompted a constitutional crisis and wrongly claimed that Prince Harry had blindsided his then 93-year-old grandmother, provoking a widespread public backlash, when, in fact, according to Spare, the Queen had been aware of it since January 3rd. We're going to stop right there. That's another lie. Sure, the family may have known that Harry and Meghan were so disgruntled that they wanted to leave and were planning an exit, but they were blindsided at the way that they announced it to the world. Now, that was the fundamental problem. Also, let's not forget that Meghan had a full website ready to go with what they were planning on doing, half in, half out, before even getting the approval of it. The Queen was blindsided because these two morons didn't understand that the security aspect of it was not the Queen's decision to make, and these two idiots thought that they were going to be sly by putting up their plans ahead of time in order to force the hand of the monarchy. Here we go again. Two well-placed sources have confirmed to this newspaper that Prince Charles' private secretary, Sir Clive Alderton, and the then Lord Chamberlain, Lord Peel, a close friend of Prince Charles, strongly urged Prince Harry to have Jones's name stripped from the record. It followed an internal inquiry conducted by Simon Case, then the private secretary to the Duke of Cambridge and a close colleague of Jones, who concluded that, having heard him deny the allegations that he leaked confidential information, there was no case to answer. However, of course, Byline Times has learned that Jones and his partner had already been named specifically in anonymous but highly detailed whistleblower testimony, which was included an internal news UKZC contributor accounting code purportedly from an administrator within the Sun, which was deemed credible enough to warrant referral to the Metropolitan Police, and which was integral to the legal letter. So let's pause here and go back in time. I think the only benefit to Meghan and Harry putting out puff pieces 5 times a day is that you have a good paper trail as to who was saying what back in the day. So let me introduce you to a writer. Her name is Bernadette Giacomazzo, and she's an editor, writer, and photographer whose work has appeared in Teen Vogue, People, Us Weekly, The Source, XXL, Hip Hop DX, The Los Angeles Times, The New York Post, BET.com, and more. She is also the author of the Uprising series and is the CEO of the acclaimed G-Force marketing and publicity firm, which has been featured in The Hollywood Reporter and has scored film, television, radio, and print placements for celebrity clientele worldwide. Sounds very much like a person who Meghan would have in her Rolodex. Why don't we take a look at her work? Specifically this article that was dated March 4th, 2021, few days before the Oprah interview. Let's all remember that the day before that, all hell broke loose when Meghan was exposed for bullying her staff. So of course, the Queen of Clapbacks had every publication write up some nonsense, and one of them was this. And let's show you where this story that is being presented to us as new is coming from. So what you started to see were many articles like this talking about how targeted Meghan and Harry were with the British media and how there are sources within Buckingham Palace who had been leaking on them. So this is one of those articles that broke the day after Meghan was accused of bullying staff right before this Oprah interview. And as you can see here, it's bullet point 1, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have been targeted by the British press. A new explosive report reveals who just might be behind these hits. If this is true, the question remains, why? With the narrative stating Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are the British gutter press's favorite whipping boy and girl. Not a day goes by when there isn't a new piece, sometimes on this very site, detailing how the spare is nothing more than a whipsawed and his wife is a social climbing gold digger who couldn't wait to get her hands on the Windsor billions. Well, I think that's some fairly accurate and spot-on reporting there. This is journalism. Anyhow, now, though, a new and explosive report suggests that these targeted hits towards the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are courtesy of a familiar source. So we're going to pause here and let's take a look at where this link leads to. Quelle surprise! This leads us back to Byline Investigates, to an article dated June 5th, 2020. Let's see what they were saying about this at the time. Prince Harry is threatening to sue the Sun newspaper, alleging it paid the partner of a royal aide for sensitive briefings. Top editor Dan Wooten is named in the legal challenge, which has developed from new whistleblower information. Wooten and publisher News UK have vowed to sue this website if we report on a letter before action setting out allegations by the Duke of Sussex, which they both deny, but We decline to be bowed by legal threats from billionaire news oligarchs and highly paid celebrity journalists for doing our job. That sounds so much like what was published in this recent Byline Times expose. Let's continue, shall we? Byline Investigates is defying threats of legal action from the Rupert Murdoch's The Sun today to report explosive whistleblower claims that the tabloid paid the partner of a royal official £4,000 for stories about Prince Harry last year. The billionaire-owned newspaper company and its executive editor Dan Wooten have both said they will sue us if we report the allegations, which are detailed in a former letter before action issued by lawyers acting for the Duke of Sussex. It follows months of public speculation about the sources of Mr. Wooten's palace stories, which he often credits to palace insiders. The whistleblower claims that the payments for the stories went to a freelance publicist whose partner is a palace aide. Sources close to the matter say it's alleged the Sun made 2 payments amounting to £4,000 in relation to stories published in June and July 2019 about nannying and godparenting arrangements for the Sussex's son Archie, and that the payments appear to have been identified by way of an internal News UK accounting code. The unusual and specific financial detail lends credibility to the whistleblower claims, yet Wooten insists he is the victim of misinformation fed in a calculated and malicious way. Confidential details of the Sussex's move to Canada were also revealed in an unauthorized fashion and then published in The Sun on Sunday in January under Wooten's name, according to 3 sources with knowledge of the case. The damage caused to the royal family by the story was extensive. It forced Prince Harry to rush forward the announcement, impacting on his relationship with the Queen, Prince Charles, and Prince William. There is no suggestion the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge had any knowledge at the time of unauthorized briefings to the press. Byline Investigates put detailed questions to Dan Wooten and News UK about this developing story last Saturday, May 30th. Both acted quickly to try and shut it down. News UK has not commented on the record, but immediately responded by legal letter from its high-priced lawyers Simon, Muirhead, and Burton. Its position is that it has done nothing unlawful in sourcing its stories and has made no illegal payments, and that it will sue us if we report Prince Harry's new allegations. It, however, declined to answer any questions, including whether the publicist was paid at all for the stories or on any plans to allow independent scrutiny over its own investigations into the matter, which has refused to confirm had taken place, but which this website understands it has conducted in response to Prince Harry's legal challenge. Wooten has not commented on the record either, but his lawyers at Meghan de Raya, one of Britain's most costly law firms, are denying in strong terms that any payments were made unlawfully to a public official or a proxy, and claim their client is the victim of a smear campaign by unknown bad actors. Neither Wooten nor News UK would clarify whether it meant the word unlawful in the criminal sense, the civil sense, or both. Wooten says he is prepared to defend his position in court and that he will prove his professional integrity if need be, and claims to enjoy the full confidence of The Sun, whose editor-in-chief, Victoria Newton, has coincidentally been named as a suspected phone hacker in an unrelated court case that Prince Harry is bringing against the tabloid. So I'm going to stop there and go back to the current hit piece by Byline Times and say, what kind of fuckery is this that they're saying that Byline Times had been a part of a 3-year special investigation when Byline Investigates is the one backed by Graham Johnson who had been writing this crap. But let's go back to Bernadette's piece back in 2021. Under the caption, A War on Two Fronts by Bernadette. On the same day that Markle filed lawsuit against the Daily Mail, Prince Harry commissioned Clinton's LLP to sue the Murdoch-owned outlets, including The Sun, The Daily Mirror, and News of the World. But in legal documents unveiled today, Dan Wooten, the executive director of The Sun, reveals his two sources, freelance publicist Callum Stevens and Christian Jones. As you can see here, this information has been regurgitated into this Byline Times so-called expose, as if they're presenting something new. All the information about the £4,000 payment to Stevens and Christian Jones's name exposed all came out back in 2019. But let's go back to this link here above where it says freelance publicists Callum Stevens and Christian Jones to see where that leads to. Oh, what do you know? USA Today, an American publication that was paid to push Sussex propaganda. This was the story that we were being fed here in the United States to give you an idea as to what the media here was telling us about this couple. The United States was being fed Sussex propaganda. This is how the narrative was told by Meghan's people at the time. And as you see, as I scroll down on this page, look whose name pops up. Lainey Gossip. Yes, that is Meghan's friend. Let's see where this link leads to. Let's zoom in on this and see what this says. So Lainey Lou, Meghan's friend, writes, yesterday, January 8th, 2020, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of House Sussex, for now anyway, announced that they will be stepping back as senior members of the British royal family and declared their intention to be financially independent. Yeah, it's kind of laughable when you see that Harry keeps harping on about his allowance getting cut off. Anyhow, my friend Kayla joked that Meghan basically told Harry to get a job. This happened a day after Harry and Meghan visited Canada House and right after The Sun reported that they were considering moving to Canada, which I didn't believe, and clearly I was wrong, and now we're here. So how did this go down? Here's what's interesting, at least to me. It was Dan Wooten who got that story for The Sun, and you'll remember, back in October, I posted about a gossip item that's been floating around the UK for almost a year now. It was curious seeing Dan Wooten give Meghan Markle both barrels this week. You'd think he'd be a little more friendly, given that he's such good pals with Wills and Kate's press secretary. So Meghan's friend is posting this stuff. Keep in mind, Christian Jones's name has not been mentioned or tied publicly to being a leaker. So let's go see what Lainey had to write in this link back in October. So this article back in October 2019 talks about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle taking alternative routes for PR, hence insert Sunshine Sacks. Lainey, Meghan's friend, writes, anyway, back to The Sun and their story about Meghan Markle and Sunshine Sacks. That was reported by Dan Wooten, the reporter who came down hard on Meghan for guest editing British Vogue. There was an interesting detail about Dan that was included in the Pop Bitch newsletter back in August that's worth tucking into your gossip folder on background and reference, especially in light of recent events. It was curious seeing Dan Wooten give Meghan Markle both barrels this week. You'd think he'd be a little more friendly given that he's such good pals with Wills and Kate's press secretary. All week, I've been writing about how the Sussexes don't trust the courtiers and the palace staff and the leaks coming from palace sources to the British tabloids that seem to be throwing Harry and Meghan under the bus. Harry and William aren't as close as they have been. All of these dots are connecting, right? So here we have Lainey now planting seeds for Meghan. Let's all not forget that she was one of the first people to be reporting on the William alleged affair with Rose Hanbury. So now let's go back to Lainey's blog from January 2020, right after Megxit was announced. She writes, that to me sounds like Prince William and Kate's communications secretary, Christian Jones. It's likely a very discreet friendship, but it's as good of a source as anyone. And if that is indeed the source, it's a major breach, considering that The Sun is one of the newspapers that Harry and Meghan are suing. Dan Wooten's story was that Harry and Meghan were having preliminary talks about their future, but all of this looks more than preliminary. What with the website all set up, and all that information locked in. We'll get to the website in a minute, which explains why it's being widely reported that the Queen and Buckingham Palace were blindsided by the announcement yesterday. They had almost no notice that it was happening, and so their statement in response to the Sussex's release was pretty pointed. Discussions with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are at an early stage. We understand their desire to take a different approach, but these are complicated issues that will take time to work through. So Lainey, who has the inside scoop, then says next, according to someone I spoke to this morning, the Queen had about a 15-minute heads up that the Sussex announcement was about to drop. And prior to that, while there had indeed been a few conversations between the Queen and Prince Harry about his and Meghan's hopes to figure out a new role, nothing firm had been agreed upon, as clarified in Buckingham Palace's statement about complicated issues that will take time to work through. Look, I believe that there were multiple conversations being held and solutions were offered, but none of them matched what Meghan wanted to do, which was monetize the monarchy, the half in, half out. Go ahead and make their money and then come back for all the glitz and the glamour of being a royal. When you see Meghan in action, the things that she says and the things that she does on her own, not with any influence of media or publicity, it's a my way or highway situation. And that abrasive and aggressive attitude doesn't fit within the institution or any institution, whether it be in Hollywood or in politics. Nobody wants to work with someone who is nasty and treats them poorly. Meghan and Harry can deflect and blame the media and blame people online for spreading misinformation because in their distorted head, they're not seeing it. All they want. But nothing's going to change because they don't understand that it's them that needs to change. And that's the sad problem of all of this. No matter what you do, they're going to continue to keep pushing back with these lies and trying to twist the narrative and force it down people's throats to eventually break people to succumb to agreeing that this is what really happened. But all they're doing is wasting money. And the more that they keep pulling these stunts and doing these smear campaigns, it's only going to get more and more extreme. And what we'll see happen is eventually somebody is going to get hurt in all of this. Now, I've said this before, the only way to stop these two is either they get locked up, which I think they need to be, whether it be in an institution or jail, or they run out of money. I'm telling you, the day is coming where people are going to push back and they're going to find themselves with more lawsuits. I wouldn't be surprised if Dan Wooten doesn't slap a lawsuit on these two for what they have done. Between the Sussex squad, as well as, the lies that they have been telling, and as well being a part of putting out this information themselves. I do think that the harm that has caused people who have spoken out against Harry and Meghan should rally together and slap them with a lawsuit. Piers Morgan lost his job because he didn't believe what she had to say, which it turned out to be all lies. This targeted hate campaign against Dan Wooten, if I were him, I would now take advantage of this online safety bill or file this onslaught of targeted harassment as a hate crime against Harry and Meghan and the Sussex squad. I mean, the laws are so loosey-goosey, I think Dan Wooten should put these laws into action and go after them. Just my opinion. It's seriously time to push back. Enough is enough. Okay, so enough about Lainey Lou, Meghan's friend. You see where this story started and how this has evolved. I'm also not going to finish out this article because it's more of the same thing. A lot of what they are rehashing has been packaged in a way that has twisted the narrative once again in putting William and King Charles now as being the ones to blame and being so cruel to Harry and Meghan when they left. Positioning William, possibly knowing about the leaks and putting Christian Jones up to leaking this information, as well as now lying about King Charles, using cutting off of the funds as retaliation because they wanted to keep them in the monarchy so they could control them and watch them. Like, all of this is so twisted and so not believable, in my opinion. But this is what Meghan and Harry do, and it's so predictable, if you think about it. They don't have any new things to talk about to tie themselves to the family, so why not rehash the past, put a new spin on it, and now here we go, everyone's talking about it. Everything this couple has accused the family of doing in using the media for manipulation is exactly what this couple have done. And people are not stupid. We all know that they leak stuff all the time to the press and put out these stories and have their PR agency try to position certain narratives, but it's not catching because these two have shown themselves for what they are, which are liars. Nobody believes them. But one thing that we understand from Meghan is that she is a master manipulator and everything is calculated and strategically planned. Just listen to what she said in the Netflix documentary. Trust those words because this is exactly what is happening now.
Now, when you plant a seed that is so hateful, what it can grow into, I mean, just...
That's you, Megsy, working your magic on all of this. We see you. Anyhow, that's all I got for you today. This so-called expose is a nothing burger, and what I see this was to make money and to get people to buy this paper copy and seeing the full thing. What a joke. Again, another scam. Anyhow, definitely leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe, and I will talk to you later. Bye!
It was such a fraud.